All right, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about energy. Um, Let me give you a woo alert. I'm going to talk about spiritual energy and stuff like that, which a lot of you may think that has nothing to do with growing mushrooms and all that stuff. But I believe it has a lot, if not everything, to do with it. Like I mentioned before about listening to the mycelium and when you're anxious about it not growing or whatever, um, if you get anxious and impatient, it stalls on you. The mushroom just stops growing, and there are so many people that agree with me on this. So I want to talk a little bit about energy, um, and and mushroom growing, or how your energy may affect your growing, and even cause, like we said, stalling, and even cause contamination and other issues. Um, and to illustrate this, let me give you a bit of history about um, samurai sword making, samurai swordsmiths. Probably the most famous and best made swords in the world were the Japanese katana. Um, and let me give you a little bit of history on that. I was a black belt in karate. I was an instructor, and when I was young, and I say was because I don't practice anymore, and I'll probably get my ass kicked right now by a 12-year-old. But I was, and I was real deep into this, which is why I know about this stuff. Now, a lot of work went into making these swords, a lot of patience, and a lot of time. And a very important aspect of it was the energy and the mental state of the person that was making the sword. So the Japanese swordsmith, they call them a tosho, put in his heart and soul into this blade. And it was believed that his mental state was imbued into the blade he was making as he forged it. And which is why they meditated for long periods of time and made sure that their mental state was clear and calm before they did this, because they believed that if they were like angry or in an unstable mental state, that would get imbued into the blade and make it a bad blade. Not just bad performing blade or just not being able to make it right, but also that spirit would be in the blade. You have to understand that in Japanese culture, everything has a spirit. Rocks, everything. Um, which is why they're really into robots, because they believe that robots are alive and they have a spirit and a soul. So this was the thinking behind it. And they made sure to meditate and be calm and peaceful as before and as they were making the blade. There's even a story of a Tosho or swordsmith called Muramasa Sengo. And he was an evil guy. And his blades were called demon swords and were said to be cursed. They were said to be bloodthirsty. And they ended up killing him because he made these cursed blades. So that's the story behind the Japanese swordsmiths or Tosho. And the mycelium looks like the neurons in our brains. Mycelium can spread for miles and miles and miles under the forest, and it is actually like the internet of the forest. The trees and other plants use it to communicate amongst themselves. There's a symbiotic relationship between the mycelium and the trees. But also, it's been found that they use this mycelium as an internet, as a network to communicate, which is incredible. So it's not so far fetched to think that our brain waves and our mental energy could communicate with the mycelium, especially with more exotic strains or types of mycelium and mushrooms. So the same as set and setting is so important when people go into any type of psychedelic journey. I believe that we should be calm, peaceful, maybe even meditate before you deal with any mycology work, especially if you're dealing with exotic types of mushrooms. And for example, I put on good music, uplifting. I just love to listen to Wookie Foot. If you haven't listened to Wookie Foot, look them up. They're great. Um, and it's really uplifting, peaceful music, either that or just classical music. Baroque cello is really good. But I like to have good music going on when I'm working with the mycelium, either agar work, especially when I am doing spawn to bulk. When I'm doing spawn to bulk, I like to be peaceful. I like to concentrate. I like to be mindful of everything that I'm doing. I don't like people walking around me and talking to me. And everybody in my house knows that I do this. The other day, my wife was going to tell me something. She said, "Oh, actually, no, no." She said, I'll talk to you later. I shouldn't be talking to you about this stuff while you're doing that." So everybody just knows about it. And without beating a dead horse, um, I believe that, especially with mycelium and mushroom work, our energy goes into what we're doing. If you're angry or if you're just careless and doing things um, like without being mindful about it, most probably you're not gonna get the best results of your work. Um, and you could even think about it in just mental terms, like psychological terms. If you're careless, you can make mistakes. You can be dirty in your work. Cross contaminate stuff or not clean correctly because you're thinking about problems or whatever, or you're just you know not paying attention, not being mindful. But I also believe that music is important. Either no music or uplifting, cool music. Don't listen to you know. There's a lot of negative music around and negative lyrics and just harsh tones. There's been tons of studies that plants react badly to bad music and react much better to good peaceful music. Another interesting work was done by Masaru Emoto, a Japanese gentleman that worked a lot with water, how our mental energy and emotions influenced water. He would say words to a petri dish of water and then freeze it, and or write down things on a piece of paper, put it under the petri dish, and then freeze it, and it would freeze in beautiful hexagonal or geometric shapes when the intention was good, and it would freeze all nasty when the intention was negative. Masaru Emoto, very interesting. So even if you don't see it as a spiritual thing, it's too woo woo, too out there for you. This is precise work. So psychological effects of trying to do something very precise, where you have to be very clean and all this stuff, when you're just not mindful, or your mind is somewhere else, or you're angry, or you just had an argument with somebody. Wait for the next day. Don't do it. Same as going on a psychedelic journey. You wouldn't go on a psychedelic journey if you're upset and not in the right headspace. So I apply it to when I'm doing mycology work. Um, Again, this may not be for everybody, but I feel like I have to put it out there, and I think it's very important to how I work in mycology. So I want to share it with you guys, and that's it. I think it's an important message. Hope this helps.